Well, we have quite the show here tonight as the Bulls end the game on a 10-0 run to steal the win. Again, the Sixers had been leading for most of the fourth quarter, but will instead start their 5-game road trip off on an 0-1 start. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers post-game show, live from the Xfinity Mobile Arena once again. Joined by
the arena.
Xfinity Mobile Studio. Nope, that's a good call. That's a good call out, Kyle. Thank you. I completely screwed that one up. But welcome to the post-game show. Welcome, Kyle, who already introduced himself a little bit rudely, if I might add. And once again, thank Ian for checking or for filling in for Bree, who has the night off. That was something else. Because before we mention that, we should mention that the PHLY post-game show is presented, as always, by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. When you sign up, make sure you use code PHLY365. And never ordinary certainly does fit with this team, because that was very frustrating. I can't imagine what your recap was like, because I felt like you were probably writing about a win for first 45 minutes of that game. But as we know, covering this team, you cannot take anything for granted.
It's look, it's one that's going to inspire a lot of takes because it's a classic. Joel had a good offensive game. I won't say good game overall because I think everyone saw the same stuff in crunch time, right? Where Kobe White is getting him in isolation and dotting him up with a jumper, and they're getting stretched out on defense and not able to get any rebounds, which is not all Joel's fault. Well, there's a lineup decision we're going to get to at some point that will get to that. But I do think you see this happening as they change lineups and they change who's available every night. It's not something that you point at Joel and say, like, it's your specific fault that the offense is not as free-flowing and as natural as maybe it should be when they're at full strength. But I just think it's the natural byproduct of, well, when the lineup changes every night and one of the guys who comes back into the mix, even if he is efficient, even if he has a good individual game, it changes how they run things. It changes where the floor spots are. It changes where, the timing is on given plays and where different guys are getting their shots, are getting their touches. So it's just this, it's a push-pull that really just never ends. I don't know if it will end. Clearly, there's a lot of built-in chemistry between Maxey and Joel, right? Thousands and thousands of reps over the years. But I actually think this year that's been probably less apparent than in previous seasons. It does feel like it's been a little bit more of the your turn, my turn. Like, okay, things are running through Joel right now. Things are running through Tyrese right now. And there's not a lot of the same cohesion that they had in the past, in part because Joel's not as explosive. And so those dribble handoffs that I think have been their bread and butter in the past, Tyrese is dangerous out of those, but it's not so much turning Joel into a potential driver. And so that junks things up a little bit. So it's really hard for me to know what to make of it. Like, I wish we could get an honest answer from the Maxies, the Joels of the world about kind of how they feel about the offense right now, because I think there's plenty of room for everybody to eat. Like, we've seen games, we've seen stretches where it's all good enough and it all works. And I do think even in crunch time tonight, the offensive process was pretty good, but you know how it goes. Like, ultimately what matters is the results and the wins and losses and how it ends. And so a really unfortunate way to start the road trip. I would, if I was trying to be PD positive, I'd say, well, you got to lose one game to go 4-1 on the road trip. But unfortunately, I don't think I'm that confident that they're going to OKC and winning on Sunday and turning this road trip around. So it's a tough one to lose because it was one of the more winnable games they have on this trip.
No, we did mention in the pregame show, like, this was the one you had to get because the road trip was going to get very tough very quickly. I am a little bit of, I think for the most part, the shots they got down the stretch were fine. Like, Embiid hit, after a repost, hit VJ with a wide open catch and shoot three, a shot that VJ has been making at like a 43, 44% clip all year. He bricked it. He was completely off tonight from the perimeter. Maxey had a couple of makeable layups, shots that he makes, good looks at the rim, just didn't convert. Paul George, good night from the perimeter. Same with Maxey. Inside the arc was an adventure. I think he only made one shot inside the arc all night, 1 for 6 from 3. I think Maxey and Paul George combined to shoot like 5 for 19 on twos, with a lot of them being pretty good layups in the paint. It's just tough to win like that. And, when we start debating, because you see the reactions online, you see even the reactions in our Discord, which of course you can get access to by becoming a diehard at allphly.com. But you see a lot of people talking about Embiid. And, if the shots that you're getting are generally good, I'm not going to get too up in arms on how you generated them. And, I do think it is an adjustment on the play style, but I just don't think that was the primary cause in this one. And, it is, they just missed a lot of shots they have to make if you want to win. And when you're not defending at a high level down the stretch, and I think they had moments this game where they were playing good, specifically in the second quarter, but moments in this game where they were playing pretty good defense. And the start of the first quarter, they were real good, active and good defensively too. But your defense was a little bit up and down. You needed to convert a lot of those looks that you just didn't. And, they made some decisions in terms of the lineup, which, like you said, I'm sure we'll get to, but I don't think that helped. Like, I don't think Quentin Grimes gave you really anything at all.
Oh.
So if you take away one of your best defenders, you put Grimes in. Grimes was a negative on offense pretty much all night. Maxey's thinking up on offense down the stretch. Paul George was, outside of making a couple of threes, pretty invisible as well. It was just a real frustrating game up and down the lineup.
I will say, you brought up Quentin and the Dominick Barlow decision that was made down the stretch. That's one where I just don't know what Nurse was seeing or thought he was seeing. And I understand, we talked about it on the pregame, right? When we talk about these multi-guard lineups, Grimes has been an integral part of that. His defense has been very good for most of the year. The shot making's been very good, particularly in crunch time. He's someone that you want to give chances to late in the game. He's come up time and time again. But this seemed clearly like a night where he didn't have it. This has been a stretch of probably 5-6 games where he hasn't had it more often than not. And in fact, I thought Nurse specifically was pissed off at Grimes in the first half when he called that timeout and he brought Justin Edwards into the game for Quentin specifically, when VJ was playing poorly at the time. Like, VJ was having a rookie game. That was a very, like, this is a kid who's in his first year in the NBA type of night from VJ. And he had his minutes scaled back in the first half as well. But Nurse had a decision of, I'm going to pull somebody or potentially multiple somebodies. And he chose Quentin because he was a headless chicken on defense, several very notable communication issues, botching switches, like plays that he's involved in that went awry. And so I was really surprised that down the stretch he decided that that's the guy I want to go with. Like, this is clearly a night where he's not giving you much of anything on offense. He's 1 for 4. That's the sum total of his offensive contributions. And defensively, he was a train wreck. Meanwhile, Barlow, you're winning his minutes all night. He's contributing as a rebounder on both ends. Nurse has said many times he wants somebody in that spot next to Joel who does the things that Barlow does, to the point that he's played Jabari Walker and Barlow at times. He's played Drummond and Bona both next to Joel Embiid at times. He wants the size and rebounding. He sees the value in it. And so I don't understand why he goes away from it down the stretch tonight. And that killed them. They were ahead in the rebounding battle for a huge chunk of this game. And when you really needed to end possessions down the stretch and you needed somebody like Barlow, he ultimately goes with Grimes, who gave them absolutely nothing. So that was a pretty confusing decision for me within the context of this game. And I'm curious if Nurse will get asked about that by the traveling media tonight in Chicago.
Yeah, no, I mean, you brought it up. They were winning the offensive rebounding battle pretty handily all night. And the fourth quarter came along and they got rebounded 5-1 on the offensive glass. Chicago basically rebounded about half of their missed shots. they could not, to your point, end a possession. And you had one of your better rebounders sitting there on the bench, and more specifically, subbed out for a guy who really didn't do anything all night, with the exception of one really nice layup. But you're not going to make a living going 1 for 4 on your one made layup. No, it was a curious decision, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, a little bit later. But it's just the entire team collapsed. Like, it was even Joel, and Joel made, he made a pretty nice post up move. Like I said, a repost, kick out to VJ. He made some plays for sure. But when you start looking at the overall shooting numbers in that fourth quarter, Sixers 5 of 21 as a team for their 17 points. Tyrese 2 for 9 in the fourth quarter. It's just not going to get it done. VJ 1 for 4. Paul George 1 for 3, Joel Embiid 1 for 4. Nobody really had it going, but Joel was the only one that seemed like he was creating space and shots for others. But I mean, Tyrese, they just need way more from him. And like, he overall shot well from the perimeter, missed all of his 3-point shots there in the fourth. Had a couple of, a lot of them were high speed, heavily contested, but shots, layups that Tyrese makes, and they just weren't going in, and were leading to opportunities the other way. It was a complete collapse. They earned this one.
Yeah, like, I know I opened the show with a soliloquy on, well, the offense is just hard to figure when you're bringing guys in and out of the lineup like this. I do think there's a thing that has happened with the fan base because of where Joel is at compared to a couple years ago, because Maxey is younger and ascending and is the guy for this team right now, where he is in the Tyrese can't fail, he can only be failed category. Yep. If he has a bad game, it's because Joel didn't give him enough touches or time on the ball. If they lose because Joel's out of the lineup, well, he's injured and he's overpaid and they need to trade him so they have cap space or somebody else. So Maxey has to take responsibility. Like, Tyrese would take responsibility for individually for shooting the way he did tonight. He doesn't duck the responsibility of being the franchise guy. But I do think there is a contingent of fans who look at a game like this and will just hand wave away. Like, he's 2 for 9 in the fourth quarter and couldn't buy absolutely anything at the rim. It's not Joel's fault that Joel set a ball screen for Maxey, gave him a runway to the rim, and then he just missed. That's Tyrese Maxey's got to be better. Tyrese, if we're talking about a guy who wants to be an MVP candidate, all-NBA guy, certainly is going to be an all-star at the very least this year. There are shots that he's got to make. There's a possession where Joel has a post-up, kicks it out to him for a standstill catch-and-shoot 3, and ugly brick from Tyrese that not only he misses the shot, then they go the other way and they score an easy transition bucket. So a lot of missed opportunities for Tyrese tonight. It's been a tough week for him. Obviously, it's 2 games within the context of a much larger and much better season where he has played at a super high level every single night. But you don't want this you have to have this be, it's a couple games and it's a blip. You can't allow it to turn into an extended funk where, hey, now it's a week, now it's 2 weeks, now it's an extended period of time. Because you are the offense. You are the guy that drives this team on that end of the floor, whether Joel's on the floor or not. Joel had a very good offensive game shooting the ball tonight, and that's not enough. They need the second option. They need the first guy. They need the top option, and that is Tyrese Maxey. So I can't believe he shot 5 for 11 from 3 and had such a bad game otherwise. It just seems like normally he has a good night from 3, and that just means he's impossible to guard. So I don't know. It's hard to find the sweet spot for these two on the floor at the same time. But I thought tonight was more Tyrese just wasn't good enough than it was about any kind of offensive process or things like that.
The Sixers as a team shot 19 of 33 on shots at the rim. That should be almost impossible. You should never shoot basically right around 50% at the rim. 3 of 12 on short mid-range. So pretty much anything close to the basket they whiffed on. It was a really
And Derek, really that's against a bad defensive team.
Horrible defensive team.
And they don't have guys in the paint who are like, I know that Buzelis has a good wing shot blocker, for example, but their big men are not exactly renowned for their rim protection or defensive skills. So the fact that they struggled to the degree that they did, I probably will go back and look at all the missed layups. One, because I'm a complete sicko, but two, just to see. The only thing I can think of with the Grimes Barlow decision is that Nurse must have seen the spacing was so disastrous with Barlow on the floor that they were daring him so much that he had to put a shooter on the floor. And even still, they won those minutes. So I go back to just leave the guy who can rebound on the floor.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, his shot needs to be like completely rebuilt from the ground up. I don't trust it all. I don't trust the mechanics of it. It's not repeatable. It's boggles my mind, quite frankly. It hasn't been reworked at this point. A lot of times that comes down to buy-in from the player and a willingness to do it. But if he ends up just ever getting a corner three, he is going to be a long-term player in this league. But that corner three, and that complete lack of one, and the teams knowing they don't have to defend him out there is tough to navigate. I think for the most part, he does a pretty good job cutting off ball and trying to put pressure on the rim to help mitigate that. But as we saw with many of the non-shooters the Sixers have employed in the past, there's only so much you can work around that. So yeah, I do look, even with the spacing issues, this is such a bad Chicago defense. I would have dared them to execute well enough to really take advantage of a non-shooter. Like a lot of times it is the fundamentally sound teams that really take advantage of that the most. I don't trust the Chicago defense enough. I probably would have kept Barlow on the floor, but it is what it is. All right, I think maybe this is a good time to take a little bit of a break and talk to some of our good friends here.
Let me tell you about a local business that's been helping Philly homeowners and businesses stay pest-free. That's Evans Pest Control. This isn't some giant national chain. They are a family-owned, community-focused pest control company right here in the Philly area, and they've been earning the trust of our neighbors for years. And with the holidays around, I've said this to you before when talking about Evans Pest Control, they have your back because there will be a lot of crumbs, a lot of families, the little ones, the adults that don't clean up behind themselves. It's all there for you that you have to clean up, and you might miss a crumb here or there, and you don't want any uninvited guests. So with that, they know how to show up whenever, not the unwanted pests. I'm talking about the family and doing their part. So make sure that you get in with Evans Pest Control. So if you see signs of pets or just want to prevent them before they start, reach out to Evans Pest Control. Visit evanspestmgmt.com to schedule your free consultation. That's Evans Pest Control at evanspestmgmt.com.
We all know the feeling, guys. You walk into a jewelry store trying to pick something out for your partner. Suddenly, you're in over your head. You're thinking, what's the difference between all these diamonds? And more importantly, what if they don't like it? It can be really stressful. That's why working with Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design has been such a game changer. They make the whole process seamless from the minute you walk in. They treat you like family. They listen. They help you figure out what it is that you'll love and that your special someone will love. And then their team designs something completely custom right there in-house. There's no pressure, no pushy sales vibe. I dealt with a lot of pushy sales vibes when I was just traveling the world on vacation for the last couple of weeks. You don't want to deal with that in any setting, but particularly not on a big purchase like this. So the next time you need that perfect piece, go see Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. 30 plus years in the game, voted Philly's #1 jeweler year after year. Over 1,000 5-star reviews, speaks for itself. Check them out today at BucciJewelers.com and tell them the guys at PHLY sent you.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers post-game show, brought to you by Bet365. So I guess we'll just roll right into, because we've already been talking about him for quite a bit. So we'll just roll into the Ace Hardware Home Services temperature check, and that is, of course, one Tyrese Maxey. And it is a weird game. He started off, I think, like 1 for 9, including I think 1 for 5 from 3 to start off. Really cold to start the game off. Played a pretty good second and third quarter to the point where it could be a temperature check up, because he played obviously so poorly against the Nets, and then had those struggles there in the fourth where he went 2 for 9 down the stretch. So it is, look, I think we can sit here and talk about this game and say you lost basically because Tyrese had an off night. And that's, I think, mostly factually. It's not the only reason. I think Chicago had a 59-12 edge in points off the bench. That's kind of significant. Obviously, Paul George, we talked about, had a bit of an off night. Quentin Grimes was MIA during his good moments and a complete disaster during the bad moments. But if you have a normal shooting night from Tyrese Maxey, you probably pull away with the win. You can acknowledge that fact and acknowledge that he's now had 2 games where he's been pretty bad. Obviously the game against Brooklyn, he struggled quite a bit as well. But you can also acknowledge, like, it's a long season. He was playing terrific basketball, the best basketball of his career for most of the way up until that point. Missed a couple games with the illness. Came back, had 2 incredible games against the Knicks and the Mavs. And you're going to have ups and downs throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, but this is the pressure of being the top guy. You do not get extended periods of time where you can have bad games and expect your team to win. This is a thoroughly mediocre. I think they're exactly 500 now, Chicago Bulls team. You lost to a bad Brooklyn Nets team the other night because you had your worst game of the year. That's what happens. There are other guys that played poorly tonight. Quentin Grimes was awful. VJ Edgecombe did not play well. Andre Drummond was bad enough in the first half that he did not make an appearance in the second half. Paul George, outside of the threes, pretty bad offensive night. But they are not the guy. You are the guy. You are the person that everybody looks to inside and outside the organization. So he's got to turn it around by any means necessary. Now, I will say, if you were looking for a team to turn it around against, it is not the Oklahoma City Thunder. He is going to deal with whatever they can throw at him, interior, exterior. They have several different guys who can switch on him. Kason Wallace is a great perimeter defender. Lou Dort is a great perimeter defender and also basically plays football for half the game. Caruso is great. Like, they just have guys that they can throw at you in waves. And oh, by the way, if you get past that initial line of defense, there's Chet Holmgren and other guys waiting on the back end. It's just a monster of a defensive team. So if he does play another poor offensive game on Sunday, I'm not going to go completely nuts because it's the Thunder and they're designed to make life difficult for guys like Maxey. But I do think that he understands in his bones, if you're the guy and it's your team and you're going to be the face of the franchise, you have to be better. And if you're not, your team's not going to win a lot of games. That's life as the alpha dog in the NBA. I thought the shot diet was generally pretty good tonight, like a good mix of stuff. Got to the mid-range a little bit. Didn't really use the runner floater game. And while I don't want to see him rely on that overly heavily, I thought tonight was maybe a night where you're getting turned away at the rim. Maybe I'm okay settling for a couple like 10, 12 footers on the run and get yourself going that way. He loves that shot. So look to that a little more. But again, it's hard to be too angry about a night where he still shoots 5 of 11 from 3 and scores 27. Like, the bar has been set high enough by him that it's weird that a game like this is disappointing. So I assume he will pull out of it quickly, but definitely a downturn for him.
No, I mean, look, heavy is a head that wears a crown. Like, you are just going to, and he's kind of shielded from a lot of it because, like, he can go and shoot, like I said, 4 for 13 inside of the arc. Joel Embiid can score 31 points on 19 shots, and Joel's still going to get a lion's share of the criticism, which is just kind of where we are in the superstar life cycle. We're at the point where anytime anything bad happens, 75% of the fans blame Embiid, and then the other 25% of those fans reflexively defend him no matter what. It just seems like everybody's in those camps, and Tyrese gets shielded a little bit from criticism because of that. He also gets a benefit because he's young. But when you are the engine of an offense and when it is your team and you have 2 straight games where you struggle, and this wasn't nearly as bad as the previous game, of course, but it was, he missed a lot of shots down the stretch. And whenever that happens, it is going to lead to some scrutiny. But for the most part, I think he has been, obviously, everybody thinks he's been having a really good season and he's taken a lot of growth. So don't want to make too much of it. You did bring up the Thunder. And what I always love about them is, they're the best defense in the league, but that's underselling it by a lot. They are 4.7 points per 100 better than the second best defense. There's as much of a gap between the best defense and the second best defense as there is between the second best defense and the 12th best defense. So they are lapping the competition, and that is going to be a tough team to try to get back on track against. But, I mean, look, I criticize him for his play down the stretch, didn't play well. I don't think it changes anything about your valuation of him.
Do you think they could borrow Wemby from the Spurs for a game? Because they're
the only team that beats them.
Listen, they have their number. They've been killing those guys. That's what they beat them home, away, and neutral site at this point. Yeah. So it's every possible place you could beat them during a season, other than in the playoffs. Obviously, they have done it. So very impressive. I'm sure. Not that you can replicate Victor Wembanyama. Even if you have Joel Embiid at full health, he's still, 4 or 5 inches shorter than Wemby. So not the same guy. But I am sure Nick Nurse, along with any other coach that is preparing to play the Thunder, is going to look extensively at this Spurs tape and say, what have these guys figured out? Because when you win 3 straight against a team that has, 5 total losses the whole year, 5 or 6 losses, there's something to be learned there, even if it's just that Wemby guy's pretty good.
0-3 against the Spurs and 26-2 against the rest of the league. Yeah. We could borrow Wemby. That would be great. No, I mean, I'm not sure I have too much more to add on Maxey there. It was just it was a disappointing end because, quite frankly, I think what makes the fourth quarter so disappointing is that throughout the third quarter, it looked like a lot of the guys that you really relied upon were getting back on track. Like Tyrese was making some tough shots in the third quarter. Paul George was getting hot from 3-point range and looked like he was turning around what was a pretty nondescript game into a pretty good one. And then they both kind of sucked down the stretch. And we have to do another post-game show about a collapse where they give up a 13-2 run and a 10-0 run to close it to lose what should have been their most winnable game of this road trip. But
it is pretty typical that I come back from vacation and they couldn't just give us a normal, just 8 to 10 point win. It's like, oh yeah, Joel played well. Maxey didn't play all that well, but they won anyway. Who cares? It had to be 5-alarm take fire and right back into the mix, Derek. Devon was the only smart one. He took tonight off. He smelt this one from a mile away. He's like, you know what? That last Bulls game, I'm getting out of Dodge after that.
Well, he didn't take the night off. Didn't you see him in that ad read?
That is true. He wanted to tell everyone about our friends. Great guy that Devon is like that.
And he was in the chat too. So he's here working. He's here working.
What a guy.
Yeah. All right. So I think outside of there, I guess we can probably go to maybe honestly a little bit of Nick Nurse, because besides the whole Barlow and Grimes decision down the stretch, that lineup to start the second quarter was, I think, the other real weak point to start the game. And, you had Edgecombe and McCain in the backcourt. And then you had Edwards and Drummond, and I'm blanking on the fifth. It might have been Grimes, maybe, or Barlow.
I think Edwards came later. I think it was, I want to say Jabari Walker and Grimes.
Okay. Either way, they had a start to the second quarter where none of your big three were on the floor. Not that your big three were necessarily playing all that well, but you'd like to have at least one of Maxey or Embiid on there at all times. And Chicago started the third on, what was it, an 11-2 run, something of that sort. It was just a bit of a head scratcher, quite frankly.
Well, here's what I would say. There are a couple things there. One, I think part of the problem is that they are not getting anywhere near as much from Jared McCain as probably everyone is hoping or wanting. I did think that when he was in the game over Edgecombe for the back half of the second quarter, he did what he needed to do there, made a couple of nice drives, defensively was in the right places, and you're like, okay, this is probably a good lesson for VJ. Just you got to play a little more under control than you are early in this game. Was in some foul trouble as well, so sit him down, let him watch for a little bit. But Jared has just been nowhere near the offensive player they needed to be. He's 0 for 3 from 3 tonight. And I think at least a couple of those were wide open.
Yep.
He missed the one transition 3 late in the third quarter where they went on a mini run, and Paul hit a 3 right out of the start of the fourth quarter. So it's not like they didn't sustain the momentum. But if Jared hits that shot or if somebody hits that shot and then Paul hits that 3 to open the fourth. Like, you're talking about, you potentially could pull away early in the fourth quarter, at least build a little bit more padding into the lead when you have guys on the bench your big guys on the bench who need some rest. And part of the value of having this deep guard group and having McCain in this reserve role is that he's supposed to be offensive firepower. You're supposed to be like, you know what? I'll live with his defensive limitations. I'll live with the lineup construction issues that come from having him, because I believe so much in him as a shooter and as a guy who can flip a game on its head on offense. And the best thing you can say about him is he's just been kind of competent off the bench, which the bar needs to be higher, because if all you're getting from him is competence, what I would rather have is somebody who's bringing competence and is like 6'8" and can play forward and can play and can rebound the ball and play in some different lineups. So he deserves plenty of grace and time to find his legs after the 6 months of rehab, post-surgery, the thumb injury. But like, I think a lot of these bench issues circle back to he's got to be a different level of guy. And VJ, quite frankly, has to be better in those minutes as well. He has not been very good as the lead ball handler. His best moments all year have come as second side, 2 guard with Tyrese Maxey, and getting to play kind of off the advantages he creates, the openings that are being created by Embiid and spacing from Paul George. So he's got to be a lot better in those situations as well. But as Brett Brown used to say, can't expedite his birth certificate. So they need these young guys to be better than they are right now when they're doing the heavy lifting, and Maxey and Joel and PG to a lesser extent are getting the rest.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was, it's McCain has, with the exception of a brief stretch, really struggled. And he is missing some open threes. And, I believe in his shot. And it is something where I think he needs that shot and he needs that closeout and needs that attention to really help his dribble drive game. I thought he made some good moves going to the basket where he was able to use a little bit of that like herky jerky style that he has to get space on drives, even though he can't create that obviously with just pure burst. Struggled finishing at the rims at time. He keeps trying that, righty layup on the left side that he just hasn't felt like he's converted all year. And he's missing some bunnies. But I feel like once that shot goes down, it's just going to be easier for him to get to his spots off the dribble, easier for him to get into that mid-range, easier for him to lower a shoulder, bump, and pull up. But he just can't consistently make a shot from the perimeter. It was, like I said, I still believe in him. I think the offense is going to turn around. I think he was pretty decent defensively. Now, look, he got blown by a couple times. He had a couple closeouts where he was out of control. But in terms of his, rotations, getting deflections, I think he was certainly giving you effort. And, he's obviously going to be overmatched, but I think he at least found ways to contribute. But, man, he needs that shot to go down in a big way.
Yeah. And so when those lineups aren't working, I can't – it's not like we can look at Andre Drummond and be like, hey, buddy, you're the reason this is failing. And if you're looking at Andre Drummond and saying – these bench groups aren't working because of you, that's just an indictment of everybody else who's on the floor. So they need more from Jared. They need Grimes to get his act together. Like, he just has not been good for a couple of weeks now, basically. And I think that has highlighted some of the issues that they're having at the other creative spots. So you can't, again, we circle back to Maxey and say, he wasn't that good tonight, but you can't ask him to play. He's playing 40 minutes again to win a game against a mediocre Bulls team. So you can't ask him to do everything. There is, to an extent, Jared and VJ, your job is to try to win those minutes, or at least tread water in those minutes, not get absolutely pulverized by, the backups of a, again, thoroughly mediocre Bulls team. So those two got to be better.
Thoroughly mediocre. No, just a real struggle from the backcourt in pretty much all facets. And once again, that Temper Check was brought to you by Ace Hardware. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project. All right, I think maybe we can pivot a little bit into something a little bit more optimistic after this break. But before we do that, a quick word from a few more of our friends.
As during the holidays, I don't know about you, but it feels borderline impossible to eat well, to eat healthy, but also just to eat good sometimes. Sometimes the cooking is not that great when you're going around to all your relatives, in-laws, mom, dad, whoever it might be, not throwing anyone under the bus. That's why Factor's chef prep, dietitian approved meals help me stay balanced, energized, and also get some good eats during the most indulgent time of the year. Factor outperforms all the other meal kits. I've tried a few, so I want you guys to follow the 97% of customers that say Factor helped them live a healthier life and eat smart at factormeals.com/PHLY50 off. Use the code PHLY50 off to get 50% off of your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's a hell of a deal. That's code PHLY50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off of your first box plus free breakfast for a year. Exclusive holiday offer, will not last. Lock in your savings before the New Year rush. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase.
If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you need to be using Monarch. Rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean interface on your laptop or your phone. And right now, just for our listeners, Monarch is offering 50% off the first year. During this holiday season, Monarch was the wake-up call that I needed. It made me stop and adjust my spending before the credit card bill arrived. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, linking all of your accounts in minutes so you can get clear data visuals, smart categorization of your spending, and real control over your money. Monarch Money was named the best budgeting app of 2025 by the Wall Street Journal. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code PHLY at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code PHLY.
Uh-oh. We lost Derek. No. Derek was so fired up about Monarch Money that he said, that's it. No more podcasts for me. The Sixers have beaten me down. I got to go check on my finances. Ethan, give me a high sign if Derek is actually still here. This is going to give Rich enough fodder for the Xfinity Wi-Fi ads for the rest of his life.
Yeah. He's gone. Power's out.
His power's out?
He said the whole development just lost power. I said,
oh, my goodness.
Said the ghost of Josh Giddey just came by.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, Ethan, it appears you are in the number 2 chair now, or the number 1 chair, depending on your perspective. So welcome aboard, and everybody say hello to Ethan as we hang out tonight. Ethan, did you watch the game?
I did. I did have it on, and I was a little distracted making elements for the show. It can be hard to watch and be involved and be involved in terms of making the show at the same time. And so I saw like things were going pretty well at first, and then I don't know. I mean, I didn't really get to see like the details of what happened, as you guys have touched on. But yeah, it just seemed like they lost a step and just totally bottomed out at the very end.
I can't. Derek is unbelievable. I honestly, I feel like because I took my vacation days and made him actually work for the month of December, this is all just an elaborate prank to get back on it. At least Devon did me the courtesy of saying he's actually going to take the night off and still filmed a nice message from one of our partners here at PHLY. Meanwhile, Derek is like, oh, no. Yeah, I'll do the show with you. And pre-game, he's got the camera issue. Post-game, apparently the power went out in his neighborhood because power goes out in the middle of December for absolutely no reason in there.
Yeah.
In people's neighborhoods. All right. Well, I don't even know where we're going. Well, next up, I think we had what? It was the unsung hero segment, and we were going to talk about our
to touch on.
Yeah. So our unsung hero presented by Togo. Thank you to our friends at Togo for that. I think the unsung hero tonight was pretty clear as we laid out with our preamble earlier. But Dominick Barlow was the guy tonight. Only scored 7 points, but 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. Oh, look who it is. His power does work. He does have working internet. You are never beating the allegations, buddy.
I mean, look. Hold on. Let me see.
Oh man, this is just brutal. What is happening? We're going totally off the rails. I think I'm just going to have to do a solo pod for the final 19 minutes because Derek seems like he's on the longest delay maybe in the history of mankind. Nick Nurse would have played Derek in crunch time is my takeaway right now. What is this? Derek, if you can hear me, nod your head. Because I can't hear you at all. Look who it is!
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, no, Devon's here and Derek decided he's going to work again. Devon here to save the day. Unbelievable. He took the night off. And
everyone can hear me now, right?
Oh, yeah. Yo, now the Wi-Fi works. Devon just had to pop on for 8 seconds and remind everyone that he is the glue that holds this show together. And now he can go back to having his night off.
Devon, you can leave, but keep watching just in case my power goes out again.
Oh man.
Can I
Nope.
Can I be the unsung hero?
Yeah, Devon, no, you're the sung hero. The sung hero.
Lord.
100%. Well, good to see you, Devon. I won't see you in person until nearly the new year, which is crazy since I see you basically every day otherwise. But good to see you, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your night off.
All right.
Well, we'll see you on Sunday. But like I said, please be on standby just in case, because apparently nothing works tonight.
Derek rewired his house and rewired it in a way that killed the power. So anyway, the unsung hero is Dominick Barlow. Good job by Dominick Barlow tonight, who had a very classic glue guy, starting forward type of game.
Yep.
And once again, I have no idea why Nick Nurse said, Quentin Grimes, I know you sucked for the rest of this game, but I really think you're going to turn it around at this part of the game.
That's really what was stunning, because like Barlow was crashing the glass. He was playing good defense. He was doing all of the Dom Barlow things, and Grimes just sucked. Like, he just absolutely sucked for most of the night. I think for the most part, he was struggling, I think, defensively in the first quarter, maybe going into the second quarter. I think he played some decent defense after halftime, but nothing exceptional. He was, I think, got beat a couple times in transition. His shot was off, and Barlow was playing really good basketball and doing really good role player outside of shooting stuff that helps the team in many different ways. And to go down the stretch without him. Now, look, Sixers couldn't make anything in the fourth quarter, and maybe with Barlow, you still can't make anything. But at least you have a chance to compete on the glass. At least you don't give up 5 defensive rebounds down the stretch. At least you have a little bit more versatility on defense, and maybe you could have competed in other ways. Maybe it doesn't matter if everybody else is missing shots, but at least it would have been, I think, based on the flow of the game, I think that's how it should have ended. And you brought up earlier how, Grimes has been really good in the fourth quarter and really good as a closer, especially in the first month of the season. And I think Nick sort of has a plan that he likes to follow, and he wants that, closing lineup. He wants as many shooters, as many ball handlers, as many guys who can attack a closeout and make plays on the floor as possible. And I just felt like tonight maybe wasn't the game where you followed that script.
Yeah, and honestly, after the long contract dispute where it ends with Grimes being on the qualifying offer, I think part of the value that you retain as an organization when you make that choice and you play hardball with Grimes to the extent that they did, is that you can go into a game like this, or you should be able to go into a game like this and look at Grimes and say, you're just not playing. Like, you're not playing in crunch time. You weren't good enough. This is not a player with a gigantic salary who has made all kinds of promises about playing time. This is someone that the organization had an opportunity to give a bunch of money this summer, and they flat out declined. They offered him like $100,000, if you believe some of the reports out there. $100,000 as a raise, I should say. That would have been a real insult to say, we're paying you less than the minimum. We're going to give you an illegal contract offer. But you should be able to look a guy like that in the eye the same way you would Jared McCain when Jared McCain doesn't play well and say, you don't deserve 20 plus minutes. I'm giving you 10 to 15. And if you're not good by the 15th minute, you ain't getting 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 20 plus. So I understand where the instinct comes from. I do think Grimes has earned himself plenty of goodwill. I just think he should be in the bucket of players that are more of the, you look at how the game is going tonight and say, one, are you playing well? And two, are you bringing to the table what this group needs to balance out the lineup right now? So thank you, Dom Barlow, for doing the good side of that.
I mean, honestly, thank you, Dom Barlow, for most of the season. And he is the one,
Yeah.
like, we can talk about Walker and Barlow. He is the one that I think you convert the first time that Josh Harris's checkbook allows you to. I think he is the priority to convert because I do think, like, look, I have no faith in that jumper at all. But if he somehow does miraculously fix that out, he has so many different ways that he contributes to winning that it's just his versatility is more impactful than Barlow's rebounding. Even though I trust Walker's rebounding, even though I trust Walker's shot a little bit more. Not that Walker's a good shooter or even all that willing of a shooter, but compared to Barlow, he's Steph Curry out there. And it is, very rarely do I say, like, give me the non-shooter, but in this case, give me the non-shooter. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just think that he is more bankable as a defender. Just there are more matchups where, there are possessions tonight where he got switched onto a guard and he's moving fluidly and staying with them step for step. So I have a lot more confidence in him there. And like, look, if ultimately they ended up with Walker on a converted contract for this year, like, I think he's shown enough to be better than a two-way guy. We said when Jabari Walker was signed that we thought he was better than a two-way player. And a lot of the people that I think both of us probably talked to out in Portland were surprised that that's all he ended up on, because he was a fan and organization favorite while he's with the Blazers. So Barlow and Walker, both much better than their deals, but night to night, Barlow has earned a lot of trust from Nurse, a lot of trust from the fan base. And I think he's just a classic make stuff happen player. It's not the same stuff every night, but he's a lot more composed with the ball in his hands than I expected him to be when he got here. Has been an absolute revelation as a two-way guy.
Admin just absolutely roasting me in the chat. Unbelievable.
That's tough. That's tough.
Anyway, that was the Unsung Hero presented by Togo, the leader in operations outsourcing. Let Togo handle the work that gets in the way of your work. You call the plays, they execute. Yeah, look, what did you overall think of Paul George's game? Because I know you had some spicy comments in the chat. Not spicy, but little critical comments in the chat. He did really get hot there in that third quarter and gave them a nice boost. Hit some really tough shots from the perimeter, too. The defense was, I think, again, at times, pretty good. Not always, but at times, pretty good. But, man, do they need more from him off the dribble at times.
Well, do you think we should pause to talk about our last set of friends before we revisit Paul George?
Sorry, I didn't realize it's been 15 minutes because I was away for most of them.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to make sure we talk about all our friends, and then we'll be right back to talk about Paul George.
All right, let's do it.
Philly sports fans, I need you to listen up. It's the season of gifting. We're past Christmas at this point, but maybe you're going to see someone that you needed to get a Christmas gift and you're looking for something truly unforgettable and you left it to this moment, I've got the perfect idea for you. You got to check out the incredible work from Philadelphia sports artist Jordan Spector over at spectorsportsart.com. I own some of Jordan's pieces myself. They aren't just posters you hang on the wall. They're museum-level artwork of the greatest moments and icons in Philly sports history. His collection comes in prints, canvases, even athlete-partnered trading cards. One of the newest cards actually includes a piece of Brandon Graham's game-worn jersey for that matchup in New Orleans. Remember, against the Chiefs, doesn't get more authentic than that. If you've got a diehard sports fan in your life, or maybe you just want to treat yourself, it's the kind of gift that they, or maybe you, will talk about forever. So head on over right now to spectorsportsart.com. That's spectorsportsart.com. Grab something epic for the Philly fan in your life.
Guys, do you really want Joel Embiid leading the fast break? He certainly does, but that can get you into some trouble. It's not worth the risk. You want to keep your stars focused on doing what they do best. The same goes for your business. You don't want your top people buried in operations, the tedious, time-consuming, redundant activities that wear the team down. Togo can help any business looking to reduce operating costs become more efficient or unlock more time for their best people. From customer service and accounting to order management, logistics, admin, data entry, and even complex multi-step operational processes, they take it off your plate at a fraction of the cost. Every engagement starts with free process mapping and engineering. No cost, no commitment. They don't bill you a dime until the real work begins. With programs starting as low as $1,000 a month, you're not going to break the bank. Each Togo program includes dedicated staff, custom automations, and US-based process engineers who act as your quarterback, giving you complete control, total transparency, and instant efficiency. At Togo, you call the plays, they execute. Visit harnesstogo.com, scale smarter, work faster, and stay focused on winning. All right, welcome back to PHLY Sixers postgame show brought to you by Bet365. Go ahead, Kyle.
So Paul George, wasn't thrilled with his offensive game tonight. Just like with Maxey, absolutely brutal inside the arc. I will say, as someone who killed him all of last year for when he had a tough start to games, just abdicating duty and allowing it to be someone else's problem, I did appreciate that he stayed in the game long enough to go on that mini heater he had at the end of the third, start of the fourth. Thought he also chipped in as a rebounder, chipped in as a playmaker, chipped in as a defender. But yeah, I mean, there are only so many ways you can say, he still wasn't good enough on offense. And I get it. He's the third guy. And frankly, a lot of nights, I don't even really want him to be the third guy. When VJ plays better, I want VJ to be getting time on ball and touches and possessions that Paul is taking in a game like this, which is fine. But, he's okay. He's even pretty good at times, but you needed a little bit more than he offered tonight. And if you get like an average Paul George game, you probably win that one pretty comfortably.
Yeah. Yes, you do. It really is like you needed more from your second and third, your two of your three max players. It is sometimes. And look, obviously the Bulls outscoring the Sixers was 59-12 off the bench, I think. It's a factor. But that's in part a factor because the Sixers starters play 35 to 40 minutes per night, whereas the Bulls starters, the Bulls bench players are getting 24, 25 minutes pretty much across the board. Outside of Quentin Grimes, Sixers don't have anyone who gets those kind of minutes off the bench. Like you're talking about 10 minutes from Jabari Walker. He's just not going to score all that much. You're just playing your starters a heavier percentage of those minutes, and your starters let you down. So that is, and also you're obviously, missing Kelly, you're missing Watford, and so on. So you're missing a couple of guys who would help alleviate some of that. But when McCain and Grimes stink, and George and Maxey, don't want to say stink, but you didn't get quite enough from them, not nearly enough from them down the stretch, it is going to look a little bit lopsided. All right, I think we have a couple of super chats here to get to before we head out. So I guess we'll start off. We have a couple here from Schoolboy. They notes that they are 6-1 with Maxey and Paul on the floor, 5-5 with Embiid, 0-4 of all three. I spoke a little bit about the they're 0-3 at the time with the big three. What do you make out of that?
What I make out of it is what it looks like, right? Where they have these moments where you can see potential. You see Maxey and Joel, 2-man game, and the just hours upon hours they played together. Like even before they lost the game, with like 4.5 minutes left, there was a really nice sequence where it was a classic, like Maxey Joel, 2 dribble handoffs. Maxey gets downhill, goes to the basket, nice left-handed finish. And you're like, okay, Joel had his 31 points tonight, was the guy for most of the game, but now the runway is there for Maxey to be the closer, the alpha, whatever, down the stretch. Like looked like it was setting up for that. And then he just wasn't good enough. And they didn't take advantage of the possessions where, Joel gets a deep touch, VJ gets the kick out, clangs the 3. Maxey had another 3 not that much long later, open trail spot, and never really came close on the shot, missed opportunity. So I think eventually they won't be winless with all 3 of these guys in the lineup is what I would say. But I think you can feel it. I think you can see it, that it is not a well-oiled machine. It's very much a group of talented guys who on paper fit together, but just don't have the reps and the time as a trio, and they haven't figured out the rotations as a group. That's on Nick Nurse, that they, regularly are going to win minutes together or separately.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think 2 of those 3 games were really, well, not 3 out of 4, but 2 out of 3 games were really close and quite frankly pretty good performances. Like that Hawks double overtime, and they lost at Hawks double overtime. Neither Joel or Paul George were playing there in that second overtime, so it's hard to even really blame them for that. And they're at a point now where coming into this game, they had only played 121 possessions together on the floor. Like, to your point, of course you're not going to be in sync when you've played 100. That's like basically 48 minutes of basketball. They played about a game's worth of basketball together. And they're plus minus, they have a plus 9.2 net rating in those 121 possessions, but it doesn't really matter because it's only 121 possessions. I would say overall, I probably care more about, not now because the sample size is too small, but as we go deeper into the season, hopefully get more and more games together, I care a little more about the net rating than I do about the pure overall record. Mm-hmm. But because like, for example, tonight, like they got absolutely steamrolled in that start of the second quarter when none of them were on the floor. But like Brett used to always say, you cannot expedite the birth certificate, which I think you referenced earlier today, talking about VJ. You cannot really expedite chemistry either. Like it's going to take a little bit of time, especially when all of them play so differently, depending on who's on the floor. So I think it's going to take some time. I don't think it's as bad as an 0-4 record would indicate, but they have gone through periods where they just don't execute down the stretch. And like I said, I think tonight a chunk of that is they missed some pretty good shots, which sucks, but I'd take that over other ways to collapse a game.
Yeah.
Kind of sucked. Another one here from Schoolboy. Or here we'll start off with PP3K3 Jamal. 2030 can't get here fast enough. I assume that is referring to Embiid's contract. But
yeah,
look, here's the only thing I'll say about that. He's not going anywhere. Like, you can complain about it. Like, you can't trade this contract. And if you would trade your contract, you would lose every bit of flexibility in terms of trade assets that you have. That's not going to help you build around Tyrese Maxey. You can't build around Tyrese Maxey when you have no tradable contracts and no first-round draft picks to trade. You would be, it would be a Pyrrhic victory to try to get off of that contract. I don't think it would actually help you in terms of your flexibility. You can't even stretch him right now. Like, you can't stretch him until like 2027 or something like that. Like, you can't even go the nuclear option right now. Like, you're going to have to get used to this. It's a, and then one more here real quick before we get to that, head on over to allphly.com if you are watching on one of our fast partners, so you can watch the end of the show. Although I think we're pretty close to wrapping up, but put on over there anyway.
A little bit of overtime on a
last one
Friday
here
night.
A little bit. Last one here from Schoolboy. Oubre's not playing. He's going deadline, so Josh Harris can play with that tax line. Kyle, would you like to comment on this, since I feel like I rant about the tax more than anyone?
No. Actually, so you saw the team on, I guess it was Tuesday. Did they sound any closer to giving a real update on Kelly instead of just, well, the hemming and hawing and doing
So
all
you're sick of Sean Champ yelling at you in the chat, huh? You're gonna throw it over
No,
to me.
I'm saying since I've been I was literally in Africa on Tuesday. I think you're a little more in the know on the comings and goings of the injured players than I am.
No, we are exactly the same in the know. It might surprise you, but they don't really give all that great of updates until they have some positive progress to share. No, the last bit of update we got was that they are, doing individualized workouts. And when you ask follow up, that's pretty much all you get. They're doing individualized workouts. They're not participating in team activities at this point. So I think it's going to be a little bit, both for him and Watford. I think Watford might be a tiny bit closer, but that's more going off of a vibes check than anything else. No, I think there's still a little bit of time here before Kelly will get back.
Well, I want to circle back quick on the PP3K super chat about Joel's contract. I will just say I do sympathize with the people who, even if they are realistic about, hey, they know he's going to be here, they know you can't trade him because of all the things you laid out. There is just that underlying feeling and sentiment of you just want to watch it happen another way. Like, there are these games where Joel and even PG don't play, and you're just watching everything run through Tyrese and VJ and Jared, and it's like, I get it. This era has created and has come with a lot of baggage, and so some people are just ready to be free from that baggage and see things happen a different way. I get that. I understand that. But we have to live in the day-to-day reality of Joel's not going anywhere. PG's not going anywhere, at least for the short to medium term. And so these guys have to develop chemistry to try to win with Tyrese Maxey sooner rather than later, because their choices otherwise are trade the farm to simply get off of contracts, and then you doom Tyrese to where you don't want to be, which is the middle ground of mediocrity with no way out and no reinforcements coming. So hope for the best and see what happens.
Yeah, I do think that if you wanted to move one of the maxes just to try to change things up, people always love to say it, like, spread that contract around. You can't really do that because you won't have salary cap space to do that. But maybe you can get 2 smaller contracts. You can then flip them, try to get like 2 or 3 role players in the PG slot, whatever. I think Paul George is a more realistic guy that you can move.
Yeah,
like, I think, especially if he plays well and plays consistently throughout the next, couple of months, you get the next year. He's only got 2 years on his contract. You could theoretically find someone to do that. I do think he will age into being a useful player. Maybe not a guy you want to run offense 3 down the stretch, but a useful 2-way player, and has a chance of being that over the final 2 years of his contract, even at his advanced age. You could convince a team to take a shot on him. Joel, you just can't. Like, we all understand the limitations. I've said this before, but like, Tyrese is maybe, if you're going to pick one archetype of a superstar to play next to a hobbled version of Joel Embiid, Tyrese, and you even saw that throughout portions of the down the stretch where they still have really good chemistry, navigating DHOs, navigating pick and rolls, where Embiid can get Tyrese really good looks, even in his hobbled state. Tyrese is maybe the perfect archetype of a star to play next to a hobbled Joel Embiid. And if you're going, well, we have a team led by the perfect archetype to play next to Embiid who wants to contend, but we don't think Embiid as a rim protector or a defender or with this contract is going to help us win enough games at a high level, what team are you going to find that is going to want him on the floor? Like, what at that salary? Like, it's unrealistic to be like, he's got the worst contract in the league. We can't rely on him and he barely plays. Let's trade him. It's just, those two statements are kind of incongruous. Like, there's just not, it's everyone understands the risk of him.
Well, on that note, happy Boxing Day. Merry Christmas. And we're out of here. It's time for roll call. Real quick.
Yeah, I only had one power outage in that whole post-game show.
Jeez. What an interesting Friday night we had here together. Derek, on my first night back from a nice extended December vacation. We don't get many of those around here. Thank you, first and foremost, to our friend Ethan for stepping into the producer's chair. He even stepped into the host chair for a few minutes tonight while Derek had sorted out his issues with his power provider. So thank you to Ethan for all his hard work before, during, and presumably after the show. Thank you also to Eugene Ross, to Win Forever, to Music Lover, to Crime Think Beats, to Mellow 3 Point, D Flyers, of course, to my girl Nona, to Jess, to Val, to JSPH, to Mellow 3 Point, Theo, Marcus Blackstock. Who else we got in here tonight? We had some people who were very angry at me for, I don't know what reasons. Rich P in the building. The number one Kelly Oubre superfan, Phil W, is in the building. Of course, Derek. He certainly doesn't want to see him go because of tax ducking reasons. Quite frankly, I don't want to see Kelly go either because it certainly seems like they could use some athleticism and defense on the wing right now and play some more switchable lineups. Get well soon, Kelly Oubre, and Trenton Watford for that matter. Obviously, we want everybody back and healthy if they can be. Jay Cook, 3032, who I think is a Bulls fan, but I couldn't really tell. Seemed to be suggesting some Vucevic for Embiid trades. I don't really know what's going on there. Thank you to veteran of the Psychic Wars. Thank you to Jay of the Jungle, one of our very loyal, very friendly listeners. Thank you to Hedfa hanging out tonight. Thank you to Jack Reacher, Nathan G. I can't scroll much further. Larry K, Brian Knight, of course. Kyle Wright was in here. I think that's about enough. It's an off night for me. I'm just getting my sea legs under me, Derek. I can't do the full roll call.
Well, considering you had to carry portions of the pregame and postgame show solo, I think you did a bang-up job there, Kyle.
I'm doing my best. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Obviously, as we always tell you, if you could hit the thumbs up button on this video, it helps us out more than you could possibly know with the YouTube gods, the algorithm, the powers that be. It means a whole heck of a lot. You just take one quick second, hit that thumbs up button. It helps me sleep at night, helps the channel. It helps Derek's Pico situation, perhaps. It helps Ethan feel good about himself as well. Even, you know what? It's actually really a tribute to Devon, who on his night off came in for about 45 seconds to say, if Derek's power doesn't work, I got y'all. So we really have to also offer a big thank you to Devon for taking time out of his off night to pop in. You guys hit the thumbs up button to make him feel loved and special the way Devon should. Also hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. We will be back Sunday for pregame and postgame. Sixers Thunder. Boy, that should be interesting to see how they look against a team who presumably is not too happy about losing 3 consecutive games to the San Antonio Spurs. And as usual, will probably play as if they have a point to prove. I'm excited to see that game. We hope to see you there too. Until then, stay safe. Take care of one another. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.